the pros and cons of breaking Wicked into 2 parts.
Mm-hmm.
Because when I first heard it was going to be 2 parts, I instantly start thinking Divergent, part 1 and 2, Breaking Dawn, part 1 and 2, Hunger Games. What's the Hunger Games? Part 1 and 2.
Mockingjay.
Mockingjay. All 6 of those movies were unnecessary. I don't like talking about Harry Potter, but I feel like Deathly Hallows
Was also unnecessary.
I actually disagree with that.
Really?
It's a big book.
But my thing was like book 4 onward were big.
That's true.
Like 5 is the longest book and the shortest movie. So I'm like, if you could condense those, you could have condensed that one.
Book 5's mostly Harry just being mopey.
Well, yeah.
But anyway, so when you hear they're splitting up movies, you instantly think cash grab, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you hear the actors and all the creatives behind it being like, this is our vision, like it was very important for us to do this. And you're like, you want money. I see you.
But I think it was a good idea.
It was a good idea. That's
It's a good idea. Because I don't know if you felt this, but it didn't feel 2.5 hours long.
Oh, no, it didn't. The only reason I knew how long we were in the movie was because it was so familiar with the song was I'm like, okay, we're at The Wizard and I, and then we go here, and then we go here. But I feel like they got a chance to really flesh out the characters and get into the animals' rights that is very like touched upon in the musical.
It doesn't get the depth they got here. Like the animal rights, how it connects back to the wizard, the fact that the wizard is like a charlatan and all of that kind of leading all these people astray is all in the musical, but we're jumping from point to point to point to point. We don't really have to sit with it.
Yeah.
But the movie gives us the time to sit with it. It gives us time to sit with like Elphaba and Glinda as people and all of that. So
yeah, and we get a lot of like the sweeping vistas and just seeing everyday people in Oz. And I feel that really helps with the world building.
Prolonged dance numbers too, which is just fun.
And it also, something that we've talked about is maybe it's given a focus to some songs that might be ignored when you have so many bangers in one musical. Like we talked about how shocked we were, like the Loathing song came viral because during like the height of the musical on Broadway, nobody was talking about that song.
Yeah, it's like fun. It's fun and catchy, but like they gave it such good choreography and like such a dynamic performance. I really do think it's the dancing.
Yeah.
It propelled it to viral.
Yeah. Because that's what everyone's doing.
Yeah.
A specific move.
And then I'm Not That Girl is the ballad of every person who's ever had an unrequited crush. So I have always enjoyed it, but I feel like if you're going from thing to thing to thing and you don't have time to sit in this confusing love triangle, then maybe it doesn't hit the way it did in this, because we had more time with Elphaba and Fiyero. We had more time of all of that. So
yeah, and that was again another thing that was great about the movie medium was you see the looks between Fiyero and Elphaba. So it doesn't feel like her feelings came out of nowhere, which it can in the musical.
My feeling watching the musical had always been that Fiyero was very into Glinda all through Act 1. And it's really only in Act 2 that he kind of becomes disenchanted with the whole thing. And that he was like kind of liked Elphaba, like as a person, but he didn't love Elphaba, which made their love story feel very quick. Whereas this is kind of like he's always been fascinated by Elphaba. And Glinda is just the choice that makes more sense. It's more his usual type. It's the easier choice. And then he's just
Glinda makes the choice for him.
Yeah,
because
100%.
she sees him, and because throughout Dancing Through Life, he's dancing with everybody. Fiyero's like, you take the prettiest girl, give her a twirl, and it's another girl she's dancing with. And Linda,
but the bit looks perfect together, and he takes her to the dance, and they're kissing on the dance floor. Like He's into it, but
Oh no, 100%. But it's all like Glinda is the instigator of the relationship.
yeah, and
She's the one who
doesn't require a
says
ton
you're
of thought
perfect
on
for,
his,
which
so
is
his
what he
whole thing.
wants. Yeah. And there's like a bunch of like little things. Like they changed that Elphaba wasn't originally going to go to Shiz. It was just there to drop off her little sister because in the musical, she's already in her uniform. She's like, I'm going to school.
Yeah, and this was more like she's her sister's caretaker,
Yeah.
which I have feelings about this.
About Nessa?
About Nessa. So I like what they changed about Nessa's arc. I like that her thing isn't, I want to get out of my wheelchair because that is ableist as hell and we don't need that here. I like that the actor had a huge role in rewriting Nessa, not be ableist. Loved all of that. Not here to critique that. My problem with Nessa, and this isn't like, it's the fact that she is so quick to be embarrassed by her sister that I don't know if she realizes she's parroting her father's behavior.
Well, I think that was something that was good about the movie was we saw more of
it's not a critique of the movie.
father.
It's a critique
Oh,
of
no,
Nessa
no,
as a
no.
person.
Yeah. But I think it's more apparent where you understand how she got that way. That she is,
But I don't, I do understand in that if that's all you see, but what I don't understand about this girl is how she doesn't see the difference in how their father treats them.
Yeah. And also doesn't see how people treat her differently because of her chair and then how people treat...
Well, she does see that. She does recognize that people treat her differently because she's in a chair. And
but she doesn't see
like
it.
that.
But she doesn't
see... But she doesn't see that they do the same thing to Elphaba.
Yeah, exactly. That's the issue.
Yeah. And like some perspective, I beg. So...
But she's very much the baby of the family. And
younger siblings, am I right?
I know.
Is that what this is? Is this just us coming to Elphaba's defense because we're older sisters?
I hope your little brother and my little sister are not listening. My sister listens to some stuff. So I'll find out. I'll find out.
My brother knows I love him. My brother knows he's nothing like Nessa. But, and then I say,
well, Nessa has to be
in good fun, but
Nessa has to get to a certain place.
Which, okay, can we talk about how we think that's going to happen? Because it's not going to happen the way it does in the musical. Because in the musical, the shoes are enchanted so she can walk. And it's not going to happen here. Because I can't see this actor being okay with that. So,
but that's also like Nessa's folly is that she believes that will make Bach love her. That's the one thing holding back. I'm
wondering if she's going to find a different way to do that. Like something else will make Bach love her. Such a small thing to remember from the musical, but in the Ozdeath scene when Bach is like, let's dance, in the musical, he grabs her chair and pushes her onto the dance floor.
Yeah.
And this one, he just goes, let's dance, and she pushes herself onto the dance floor.
And he just he holds her hand, too.
Holds her hand. Which is nice. A good change, because the musical, she's just kind of like, huh? And he's like pushing her. So.
Yeah. That's not a great thing to do.
I wonder, they're going to have to change her reason for doing what she does to Bach. I just I don't have an answer for this. I'm just wondering what the reason's going to be.
Yeah. I hope, they seem to be listening and learning and changing. So I'm hopeful that they'll figure it out. Also, something that my parents they didn't really piece together is there's a wicked witch of the East and the West and they're sisters.
And one of them's got special shoes.
Yeah. And I also saw a review in the BBC that was like, the sister is unnecessary, and so is the animal rights thing. And I'm like, have you watched anything? Or are you even watching this part one? But that's a whole other barrel of monkeys.
Well, the animal rights thing is obviously like a political commentary. And if you're saying that's unnecessary, please just go back to watching, God, I don't know, Baby Einstein or whatever is at your level.
Yeah, because everything is political.
I was trying to go younger. I was going to say Bluey. I'm like, Bluey is relevant. So not even Bluey, but something younger than that. So go back to watching Cocomelon or Teletubbies because this is beyond you. But the sister is kind of a big part of the Wizard.
That's my thing is I would think at least a film critic would be aware of the 1939 classic.
You would think.
Wizard of Oz.
You would think.
Or at least that TikTok where the family members are going off, and she came down in a bubble.
Her sister was a witch.
So yeah. But overall, some cons I can see with splitting it into part 1 and part 2 is maybe people will forget some stuff in part 1 and they won't enjoy the twists or the foreshadowing we saw in part 1. Which
I would be very surprised if most people went into part 2 without rewatching part 1.
not all people are crazy like us, Arzi. A lot of people don't rewatch movies.
Most people I know, if they're going to see a sequel, like an important sequel, will rewatch the first movie.
See, I don't know those people.
And I'm not even talking about like my family because I grew up in a nerd house, but like most people I know will be like, oh yeah, I'm like going to see the second one, so I'm just going to rewatch the first one, like just to have it at the back of my mind.
I need to pull more people apparently. Yeah, because I think like the only negative of having it in 2 parts is that like the I'm Not That Girl reprise sung by Glinda might not hit the same way. There's all those little things like you're being like, oh, did Elphaba tell Fiyero to get stuffed?
That was funny. I wouldn't like the thing is I don't think like the I'm Not That Girl is a good point. Like if you separate the reprise by a whole year, it may not hit the same. But I think the get stuffed is like something that you're not thinking about. I'll be honest, I didn't even hear her the first time I saw the movie. It was only the second time I was like, huh. But I think it's one of those things where after you see part 2, if you go and watch them both back to back, then you're gonna be like, oh my God, she just told him to get stuffed. Or like the fact that Elphaba takes Bok's handkerchief and tucks it in over his heart and pats it and then walks away.
Let me say the one last thing about it being split in 2 is the con of it is that they did not advertise it as part 1 and 2. So when I was at the theater and the title came on, it said part 1. Someone went part 1.
I saw my dad to look over at my mom.
When I was in the car with my parents, I was like, yeah, this is only part 1. And my dad goes, part 1? Why is it 2 hours and 40 minutes then? Because he likes to look at the...
My God.
Yeah, so that's the one negative, because all these other part 1s, didn't Mission Impossible try to do something that was part 1? And then
they changing the title. It's not part 1 and 2 anymore.
Yeah. So I get it. Maybe they were worried that part 2 wasn't going to happen, even though they filmed everything already.
Well, I think that's why like Mission Impossible wound up changing the title, because they said part 1 and 2 and they hadn't filmed part 2. Wicked's done.
Yeah, that's what I don't get.
So that's why they're fine. But I think they were worried if they outwardly marketed it as part 1 and 2, that people were like, well, I'll just wait till both are out.
True. But it does feel like a trick.
It's not that it wasn't public knowledge. We didn't know. I knew that it was 2 parts.
But you were also in the entertainment
but business. That's the thing, is it was that information was available.
If you looked, but not if you just went and saw the trailer.
Sure, but
no, even if you just saw the trailer, you would not know it was part 1.
No,
because it's just called Wicked. You see the poster. That's what everyday people do. Normal people are assumed, not us.
But it's not out there. It's technically public knowledge.
They're like not outwardly hiding it, but they're also not advertising it, which is the issue.
Which I think they probably, now it's like a little more open. I think they were like waiting for people to go and be like, oh my God, this is so good. And people were like, well, I don't care if it's part 1. I got to go see it now. But
still, it feels kind of sus and a little manipulative, which I do not appreciate. And it had some people confused at the beginning. In my full theater on the second day.
Listen, at least we know they're getting a part 2. It's not like those movies that end in a shock and it's like, well, there'll be more. It's fine.
There was not.
And then there's never more. I'm thinking of Solo, like the end of Solo. But anyway.
Darth Maul's still chilling in that chair.
Darth Maul's still sitting there, like.
Yeah, with this lightsaber. Like, you just randomly.
I only remember looking at my cousin's husband at the end. And we were like, oh my God. And we're like, well, there'll be another one. Nope. Anyway.
Yeah, I think that. But yeah, having the part 1, we get so many more things. Like, we see what happens to Nessa and Elphaba's father. We hear about it in Act 2, but we see it in Act 1. We see people reacting to the news of Elphaba being public enemy number 1. And I think that will leave some gravitas to it.
I agree.